The Cambridge spy ring were a ring of spies recruited in part by Soviet scout Arnold Deutsch in the United Kingdom, who passed information to the Soviet Union during World War II and was active at least into the early 1950s. 4 members of the ring were originally identified: Kim Philby, Donald Jewett Maclean, Guy Burgess and Anthony Blunt. Once jointly known as the Cambridge Four and later as the Cambridge Five, the number increased as more evidence came to light. The term Cambridge refers to the recruitment of the group during their education at the University of Cambridge in the 1930s. Debate surrounds the exact timing of their recruitment by Soviet intelligence. Anthony Blunt claimed that they were not recruited as agents until they had graduated. Blunt, an honorary fellow of Trinity College, was several years older than Burgess, Maclean, and Philby. He acted as a talent spotter and recruiter for most of the group save Burgess. Several people have been suspected of being additional members of the group. John Cairncross was identified as such by Oleg Gordievsky, although many others have also been accused of membership in the Cambridge Ring. Both Blunt and Burgess were members of the Cambridge Apostles, an exclusive and prestigious society based at Trinity and King's Colleges. Cairncross was also an apostle. Other apostles accused of having spied for the Soviets include Michael Whitney Straight, Victor Rothschild and Guy Lidl. Membership: Maclean and Burgess, all 4 were active during World War II, to various degrees of success. Philby, when he was posted in the British Embassy in Washington, D.C., after the war, learned that U.S. and British intelligence were searching for a British embassy mole who was passing information to the Soviet Union, relying on material uncovered by the then Honor Project. Philby learned one of the suspects was Maclean. Realizing he had to act fast, he ordered Burgess, who was also on the embassy staff and living with Philby, to warn Maclean in England, where he was serving in the Foreign Office headquarters. Burgess was recalled from the United States due to bad behavior, and upon reaching London, warned Maclean. In early summer 1951, Burgess and Maclean made international headlines by disappearing. Their whereabouts were unclear for some time, and the suspicion that they had defected to the Soviet Union turned out to be correct but was not made public until 1956 when the two appeared at a press conference in Moscow. It was obvious they had been tipped off, and Philby quickly became the prime suspect, due to his close relations with Burgess. Though Burgess was not supposed to defect at the same time as Maclean, he went along. It has been claimed that the KGB ordered Burgess to go to Moscow. This move damaged Philby's reputation, with many speculating that had it not occurred, Philby could have climbed even higher in the Secret Intelligence Service. Philby investigation of Philby found several suspicious matters but nothing for which he could be prosecuted. Nevertheless, he was forced to resign from MI6. In 1955 he was named in the press, with questions also raised in the House of Commons, as chief suspect for the third man, and he called a press conference to deny the allegation. Philby was officially cleared by then Foreign Secretary Harold Macmillan. This later turned out to be an error based on incomplete information and bureaucratic inefficiency in the British intelligence organisations. In the later 1950s, Philby left the Secret Service and began working as a journalist in the Middle East. Both The Economist magazine and The Observer provided his employment there. MI6 then re-employed him at around the same time, to provide reports from that region. In 1961, defector Anatoly Golitsyn provided information which pointed to Philby. An MI6 officer and friend of Philby from his earlier MI6 days, John Nicholas Reed Elliott, was sent in 1963 to interview him in Beirut and reported that Philby seemed to know he was coming. Nonetheless, Philby confessed to Elliott shortly afterwards, apparently fearing he might be abducted in Lebanon. Philby defected to the Soviet Union under cover of night. aboard a Soviet freighter. Blunt in 1964. MI5 received information from the American Michael Whitney Strait pointing to Blunt's espionage. The two had known each other at Cambridge some 30 years before, and Blunt had tried to recruit Strait as a spy. Strait, who initially agreed, changed his mind afterwards. Blunt was interrogated by MI5 and confessed in exchange for immunity from prosecution, as he was by 1964 without access to classified information. He had secretly been granted immunity by the Attorney General, in exchange for revealing everything he knew. Peter Wright, one of Blunt's interrogators, describes in his book Spycatcher how Blunt was evasive and only made admissions grudgingly when confronted with the undeniable. By 1979, Blunt was publicly accused of being a Soviet agent by investigative journalist Andrew Boyle, in his book Climate of Treason. In November 1979, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher admitted to the House of Commons that Blunt had confessed to being a Soviet spy 15 years previously. The term "five" began to be used in 1961, when KGB defector Anatoly Golitsyn named Maclean and Burgess as part of a "ring of five," with Philby a probable third, alongside two other agents whom he did not know. Of all the information provided by Golitsyn, the only item that was ever independently confirmed was the Soviet affiliation of John Vassall. Vassall was a relatively low-ranking spy who some researchers believe may have been sacrificed to protect a more senior one. At the time of Golitsyn's defection, Philby had already been accused in the press and was living in a country with no extradition agreement with Britain. Select members of MI5 and MI6 already knew Philby to be a spy from Venona Project decryptions. Golitsyn also provided other information, such as the claim that Harold Wilson was a KGB agent. Golitsyn's reliability remains a controversial subject, and as such, there is little certainty of the number of agents he assigned to the Cambridge spy ring. To add to the confusion, when Blunt finally confessed, he named several other people as having been recruited by him. John Cairncross, on the basis of the information provided by Golitsyn. Speculation raged for many years as to the identity of the fifth man. The journalistic popularity of this phrase owes something to the unrelated novels The Third Man and The Tenth Man, written by Graham Greene, who, coincidentally, worked with Philby during the Second World War. John Cairncross confessed to spying in 1951 and was publicly accused of being the fifth man in 1990. He was also accused by Anthony Blunt during Blunt's confession in 1964. Cairncross is not always considered to have belonged to the Ring of Five. He was a fellow student at Cambridge and a member of the Apostles with Blunt, therefore present at the recruitment of the others. From KGB, The Inside Story, by Christopher Andrew and Oleg Gordievsky. Chapter 6, Sergeant, Agent Penetration, and the Magnificent Five. From Cambridge, the most important agent talent spotted by Blunt was the fifth man, the Trinity undergraduate John Cairncross. Together with Philby, Burgess, Blunt and Maclean, he is remembered by the Centre as one of the Magnificent Five, the ablest group of foreign agents in KGB history. Though Cairncross is the last of the five to be publicly identified, he successfully penetrated a greater variety of the corridors of power and intelligence than any of the other four. This reference suggests the KGB itself recognized Cairncross as the fifth man. Additional members. Many historians now believe the spy ring had more than 5 members, possibly many more. Since 3 other persons are known to have confessed, several more were nominated in confessions, and circumstantial cases have been made against others. Many of the following were likely Soviet spies. Leo Long was accused by Blunt in 1964. Blunt claimed to have recruited Long to the communist cause while he was tutor at Cambridge. Long served as an intelligence officer with MI-14 from 1940 to 45, and later with the British element of the Allied Control Commission in occupied Germany from 1945 to 1952. Ludwig Wittgenstein is alleged by Kimberly Cornish, in his 1998 book The Jew of Linz, to have been a Soviet recruiter at Cambridge. But Cornish's theories about Wittgenstein and his influence on Hitler have found little acceptance. Guy Libel was an MI5 officer and nearly rose to become director of the service, but was passed over because of rumors he was a double agent. He took early retirement from MI5 in 1953 after he was investigated for his personal links to Kim Philby. He was accused of having been the fifth man by Goran Rees as part of Rees' confession in 1979. The academic consensus is that he was naive in his friendships rather than a spy. Andrew Gow, in his memoirs published in 2012, Brian Sewell suggested that Gow was the fifth man and spy master of the group. Wilfred Basilman. In September 2015, researcher and author Andrew Lowney presented evidence which he maintained proved that nuclear physicist Mann was a member of the spy ring. Lowney had long accused Mann of being a spy. In fiction, The Hour, A Question of Attribution, An Englishman Abroad, and The Old Country, all by Alan Bennett, Another Country by Julian Mitchell, and the subsequent film Another Country. Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. John le Carré's novelization of his experiences of the revelations in the 1950s and the 1960s which exposed the Cambridge Five traitors. A Perfect Spy, by John le Carré. Events in the life of the character Magnus Pym are partly based upon the life and career of Kim Philby. Dennis Potter's television play Traitor features a central character called Adrian Harris being interviewed in his Moscow flat by Western newspaper reporters, eager to get the story on his defection. Harris appears to be a composite of Philby, Burgess and Maclean. Potter later returned to similar territory with Blade on the Feather, inspired by the unmasking of Anthony Blunt. Although in this drama the protagonist Jason Cavendish is clearly modelled after Philby. Philby is later name-checked as the sports reporter on the Daily Telegraph in Potter's Lipstick on Your Collar, and appears to be giving inside tips on horse races to officials at the War Office. The Untouchable by John Banville. The character Victor Maskell seems to be a combination of Anthony Blunt and poet Louis MacNeice. The Jigsaw Man, a 1983 film starring Laurence Olivier and Michael Caine. Caine plays a character named Philip Kimberly who returns to England after his defection. Cambridge Spies with Toby Stephens as Kim Philby, Tom Hollander as Guy Burgess, Rupert Penry-Jones as Donald Maclean, and Samuel West as Anthony Blunt. Philby, Burgess and Maclean, 1977 Granada television drama documentary, recently rebroadcast on BBC4, with Derek Jacobi as Burgess. Escape drama documentary on Philby's defection. Blunt. The Fourth Man television drama, with Anthony Hopkins as Guy Burgess and Ian Richardson as Anthony Blunt. High Season includes a character named Sharp, fleeing England before being unmasked as a spy. In Alan Moore's graphic novel The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Black Dossier, there appears a Cambridge Five analogue consisting of the famous five from Greyfriars School, including Harry Wharton who would become Big Brother, Bob Kim Cherry who would be also known as Harry Lime and subsequently Emma Mother, Francis Alexander Waverley and Sir John Knight. The Fourth Protocol, a novel by Frederick Forsyth, uses a fictionalized Kim Philby as a central character, who conspires to smuggle a portable nuclear weapon into Britain. Burgess, Maclean and Philby appear in the Doctor Who Eighth Doctor Adventures novel Endgame, dealing with their defection to Russia. The Innocent, a novel by Ian McEwan, involves a spy tunnel which the Soviets discover, but do not initially expose, similar to the Philby tunnel. The Channel 4 education show KNTV features a character called Burgess McPhilbin, who provides information for teenagers in the form of a spy dossier. The 2004 film A Different Loyalty, directed by Marek Kaniewska, is inspired by Kim Philby's affair and subsequent marriage to Eleanor Brewer, as well as events leading up to his defection to the USSR. In 2009, Michael Dobbs wrote a short play, Turning Point, for a series of live broadcast TV plays on Sky Arts Channel, based on a 1938 meeting between a young Guy Burgess and Winston Churchill. The play sees Burgess urging Churchill to fight the appeasement policy of the British government. In the live broadcast, Burgess was played by Benedict Cumberbatch. Kim Philby appears as one of the central antagonists in William F. Buckley's 2004 novel Last Call for Blackford Oaks. The plot of Charles Cummings' 2011 novel, The Trinity Six, is built on the premise that there was a sixth spy and that his existence is being covered up by MI6. The Portland-based punk band Red Dons is named after the Cambridge Five.